Hello everyone, welcome to my social thread. I'm Sienna.
And I'm Crystal, mother and daughter duo. And today what are we going to do, Sienna?
The advent calendar.
Advent calendar. So today is day 10, which is a Saturday, but we are recording it on a Friday because that's how we roll. And we are wearing coats today. So I'm wearing my tamarack and Sienna's just wearing her dad's jacket because our boiler has broken down. So where we are at the moment, Norfolk, it's -2 degrees. And I think just pipes are freezing and our boiler has broken down, and it's quite difficult to get someone over because we're not in the middle of nowhere, but our particular boiler is an industrial boiler, so I don't really know how to describe it. So say for example our normal boiler back in London, I would say it's about maybe 3 or 4 times the size, so it's a big massive huge one, and not many people want to touch it because it's not the usual thing that they do. But we have managed to get someone that's going to hopefully have a look at it today or tonight. So that's we are wearing coats at the moment inside. So back to advent calendars. Which one do we go for first?
Kylie and the Machines.
Kylie and the Machine. So Kylie Machines is the countdown calendar. So we are going to do what?
17.
You sure?
Wait, is 17 done already?
Yes, we are doing number 17. Is it
16? No, 15.
Oh no.
15.
We should rip all the things off, right? So we're doing number 15, which is a little lady and her mannequin. Let's rip all the ones that are.
I keep you warm.
Oh, that's perfect for now. Lovely, a different style this time, slightly bigger rectangles, white background, little face. I keep you warm, which is lovely. So you get 2 of those. Where is it, my love? 2 of those from Kylie and the Machines. Next calendar, Sienna, which one do you want to open?
Fabric Godmother.
Fabric Godmother. So Fabric Godmother will be day number 10. So let's just show them. Day number 10 is this lady here in her black star print.
It's not black. It looks more like navy.
Maybe. Sit down so quickly. And the tip says, make vertical buttonholes for shirts and blouses and horizontal buttonholes for jeans. I made the mistake of my recent make, which was the heather blazer, which I turned into a coat. Instead of doing horizontal buttons, I did vertical buttons. I don't really know why I did that. I just did. I mean, it still works, but I'm just annoyed with myself that I did that. But there you go. So let's try and guess what this is. So it must be something to do with vertical buttonholes.
Well, this is kind of circular shape.
Yeah, they're buttons. But in a heart shape, maybe. Do you want to open them up?
Heart shape?
Like, they're not circular buttons.
Yeah, circular
lovely. Let's have a look. So from Pigeon Wishes, which is a lovely independent business, and they must have made this bespoke for Fabric Godmother. Let's have a look. Oh, beautiful. So beautiful. How many do you get? So they are actually round. I thought they were not round. So they're lovely I think they're resin.
8.
So it's sort of purpley, turquoise, green and clear, but it's got a slight like a slight metallic finish to them, and they're lovely. And you get 8 different ones.
And yellow and
oh, they're all different colours, but sort of, let me just have a look.
some of them more than others. It's kind of
So they're all kind of the same colours, but obviously they are, I can't really show you. I mean, how beautiful are those? Beautiful. I've not bought Pigeon Wishes buttons before, but they are so lovely. So thank you very much. Put that one away, my love. And then the next one is Beyond the Pink Door.
Up as well.
And we're box number 10. Sienna. Oh, it's a nice big one. Show them. Box number 10 or bag number 10. Right, guess what it is.
You can't guess, it's a box.
It's not a box, but
It is a box.
so what comes in a box, guys?
It looks like
I'm thinking it might be a kit of some sort, like
Yeah,
we had like a cross-stitch kit, but it's quite solid inside. This is interesting. So it's quite a big box, and then it's got like a cardboard backing, and inside it kind of feels like cookie cutters to me, but I don't know. So let's have a look. Obviously they're not cookie cutters.
it's
It's a bobbin box.
so nice.
Do you want to show it to the people? To the people. Hemline bobbin box. Do I use bobbin boxes? No, I have the spool pods from Pattern Trace, which are really, really good. So it's like a silicone spool pods that you can put your thread and your matching bobbin in. But these are very useful because I do have extra bobbins for extra things. So thank you very much. All right, shall we rate them, Sienna?
Right.
You go first for rating if you want.
Definitely the buttons.
Yes. So she says first place Pigeon Wishes from Fabric Godmother Advent Calendar.
Then the labels probably. The I Keep You Warm labels from Kylie in the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bobbin box.
So my first place is, again, the Pigeon Wishes buttons. I think they are gorgeous. They're unique. They're bespoke. Lovely. I really like those. And this time I'm torn between the labels and the bobbin box. But I think the bobbin box is my second place, Beyond the Pink Door. And my third place is, who is this? Kylie in the Machines labels. Excellent. Thank you. Can you put this away? Let's just put them in my label box for now because they're really nice and I don't want them to get lost in my haberdashery. Put this away, that in the bin. So second part, sewing chat. I have actually made a dress for my daughter. So the dress that I made for Anya the other day, the Be Curious dress by Ellie and Mac, I made my youngest daughter Ava a matching dress. So it's the same fabric from Pound Fabrics, needle cord, but in a different colorway. So it's sort of a dark Cadbury purple background with floral print on needle cord from Pound Fabrics, as I say, and I'll pop up some photos of her wearing it. I don't have it to hand because she's actually wearing it today. So the photos that I've got aren't the best, but she's basically not in a good mood. Bye, Sienna. She's basically not in a good mood because she's got a bit of a cold. So I put that on her this morning and she was already crying and moaning when I was getting her changed. So I thought, you know what, just wear it for the rest of the day. So she's wearing that for the rest of the day. I'll hopefully show it to you in person tomorrow. What else have we done sewing chat? So I bought my Fabric Godmother fabric using the £10 gift voucher, which I already mentioned, so I'm waiting on that. I've also requested my next blogger project for Jenny Stitches fabrics. I was going to do the NYX closet core pattern, but that requires a lot of fabric. I think it's because it's not a fitted dress and there's quite a lot of fabric in the tiers of the skirt, and I needed about 4.5 meters of fabric, and she didn't have enough of the particular fabric that I wanted. And she said, oh, why don't you hold out and wait till I get my new viscose fabric in? And then I was just like, oh, okay, I'll do that. But then I thought in the meantime I'll just go for a simpler project this month, and so I've chosen to go for the Nina Lee South Bank sweater. And Jenny has this lovely fleece backed sweater knit in like a grey marl, so it's like super lovely and cozy. So I've chosen to go with that, with matching ribbing, matching thread, and I'm going to, once that arrives, obviously I will show you. So that's my blogger project for Jenny. In the meantime, I've also made up my project for Little Miss So and So, their luxury box. This time I got the Leona sweater by Fiber Mood. I won't be showing it to you today because my deal with them is that I show the garment for the last box in the reveal for the next box. So I'm due to receive the next box at the end of the month, and I'll do a separate vlog on that. And then that's when I post my photos on Instagram. And that's it really. So my daughter's Bakerloo dress is all cut out already, the red tartan, so I'm hoping to make a start on that. And that's it's really for sewing chat. And then the next thing I want to do is life chat. I mentioned yesterday that before I started sewing, I had another hobby, and that was cake baking and decorating. And actually these hobbies have both come about. So both sewing and baking came about out of a necessity, basically. So with the sewing, I was just after some sort of traditional girly girl dresses that were matching, different age. You can match sort of my oldest daughter and then my second eldest daughter. And I couldn't quite find that. And so I decided to make my own. And that's how I started sewing, basically. Likewise with the cakes, when my daughter, obviously because I've got so many children, we had their christenings and then their first birthday, second birthday, so on and so forth. And over the years, over the years, I was just gobsmacked by how expensive cakes were. So I'm talking about the celebration cakes that you get from the bakers that are fondant decorated. So you got princess castles, you can have anything you want, basically Disney, you can have 3D figures and whatnot. And I was just shocked by the prices. I think I went for a tiny castle cake and it was close to £200, £180 I believe it was. And I thought, no way can I spend that every year for the rest of my children's lives, as it were, or the rest of their childhood lives. Yes, Sienna?
Should I put the rest on?
Yes, please. Sienna's just making some rice, so she's putting it on for me now. So tonight, just quickly, we are having, it's Friday, so we don't eat meat on a Friday. We abstain from meat as practicing Catholics, although it's not an obligation as such. It's almost just like a recommendation. Obviously, elderly people and pregnant mothers or people that have a medical condition are exempt from this recommendation. And so tonight we're having a side of salmon, half side of salmon, you know, like a whole kind of tail. No, well, it's half side, so it's one side of a salmon but half of it. And I normally just put it in the oven. I just put salt, pepper, paprika and some olive oil, and that's quite nice, skin side down, and I put it in the oven for about half an hour if it's fresh. And that just crisps the top nicely, but the inside is still lovely and moist. And then I've also put on some roast vegetables, again in the same oven for, again, the same time, 30 to 40 minutes. And I normally put, well, what I've put today is some broccoli cut up into florets, green beans, butternut squash. So they're the hardy vegetables. And then I normally add cherry tomatoes because they're quite soft and they burst in the oven, creating a bit of a sauce. So that's quite nice. And I've also added olives and peppers, bell peppers, red and yellow peppers, and that's just really, really easy. Olive oil, salt and pepper, put that in the oven. And the broccoli, you know, cooks wet. I mean, all the hard vegetable, I wait till all the hard vegetables are done, and by that point the peppers and the tomatoes have like softened and kind of create a tiny bit of a jus as well. I'll also add some black olives last 10 minutes, which is quite nice. And if it wasn't a Friday, I normally also shallow fry or saute some chopped up chorizo, and then make sure you let all the oil out. So the oil that you've cooked it in is basically red, with the paprika coming out, and then I drizzle that on top of the vegetables, and it just adds an extra. I think chorizo, I could have chorizo and everything. It's such a lovely flavor, spicy and non-spicy. And then we're having that with rice. Children, on the other hand, are just having a tuna pasta bake. So my 13-year-old son Tristan, that's his kind of go-to dish. So he always kind of makes that on a Friday. So basically it's just pasta. We like the spirali pasta, which is like the little curly twists. And it's just some tuna tins of tuna, sweet corn, 2 jars of pesto. Sometimes we do a white sauce as well if we're feeling frisky. And then it's just 2 types of cheese on top. Bake it in the oven. Pasta's obviously pre-cooked beforehand. And the children really, really love it. And then we'll just have a salad with that. So that's our Friday meal for tonight. Just thought I'd let you know. And then what was I talking about? Cakes. Yeah, so I was just like, wow, that's such a lot of money, and it looks so simple, and I just thought I could do that myself, as people do, you know, when you have friends that see you in a new dress or a new thing, that you know, they normally sort of say things like, oh wow, can you make me one? Like, it's so easy to make. And then you have to tell them obviously how long it takes. You know, cutting out a pattern can take up to an hour. Cutting out a pattern and fabric can take up to an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Then you've got the sewing can take between, you know, depending on, so for me, for example, a lyra can take me sort of 8 to 10 hours. And then the fabric, if you want nice fabric, you're looking at between 10 to 15 pounds a meter. The lyra takes 3 meters, so that's 45 pounds just for the fabric. Then the pattern as well, say 10 pounds, the notions and everything 5 pounds, so that's 15 plus, that's 60 pounds already, and that's not even including your time. And say, for example, you were just to charge £5 an hour, by the time you've totaled that all up, that's £100. And I don't think people understand how much handmade costs in terms of time and effort and money. So anyway, similarly with the cakes, I didn't realize what went into it because it just looks so simple. So I basically started experimenting and doing things myself. The first task was basically getting a good recipe that was strong enough to hold tiers, because I quite like the tiered cakes. And I found a good pound cake recipe, although I still haven't found the perfect sort of Victoria sponge recipe that's dense enough to hold the weight of tiers, but still light and fluffy. So although I found a pound cake recipe and a lovely chocolate cake recipe. And so I just started off just making cakes for the children. I then got into, you know, making fondant animals and things, and I'll pop up some photos as I go along. So fondant is expensive, and then you've got sugar paste as well for the flowers. So like with sewing, after discovering, you know, watching tutorials on YouTube, after learning one thing, I went on to the next thing, and I just kept working my way up. So it started off with sort of fondant animals, and then I got into sugar paste, doing all the sugar paste roses, which was really, really lovely, and it looked really, really impressive. Obviously, as a beginner, the quality and the attention to detail wasn't professional. I mean, I think the hardest part really isn't even making the sugar paste flowers, because I think with the flowers, they're supposed to look natural and not like 100% smooth or 100%, you know, perfect, because they're flowers. But I think the hardest part for me was creating a very smooth, flat surface of the cakes. You know, when you buy celebration cakes, I'm sure lots of you have bought cakes in the past, where you've sort of pre-ordered sort of a cake, or even in the shops really, sort of the sides of the cakes perfectly smooth, perfectly flat, no bumps, no lumps, and that's actually very hard to achieve. I know some people, it's all about the buttercream underneath, obviously. Some people even do like a ganache layer underneath. So ganache is just chocolate and cream mixed together, and then that obviously hardens because of the chocolate, and then you've got a lovely flat surface. If it's flat beforehand, so you have to smooth that all out, and you get a lovely surface to then roll on your fondant. But yeah, so I probably did that for about 1 to 2 years. And then after about 6 months or so, you know, we used to have loads of, with the children, we used to have quite big parties at the house, probably like 50, 60 people every time we had a party, just because both our families are quite large. And then we had friends as well, and then obviously children. And people used to see my cakes, and they used to be wowed. And, you know, eventually I did get some commission for cakes. I think all in all, I probably did about eight commissions, the cheapest being about £80 and the most expensive being about £150. But in terms of the work that was involved and the cost of my time and materials, I didn't make a profit at all. And I think I felt quite, because I wasn't confident enough in my skill. The thing with cakes is, you know, like for example, if you were to sell dresses or what have you, you'd package it up and you'd send it to the person. You wouldn't see that person's immediate reaction because it's posted, and then you'll just hopefully wait for a nice comment, you know, for them to say, oh, it's really lovely, thank you so much. With cakes, you're bringing it to the venue, you're bringing it to the person, so it's an instant, what does she think? You know, you have to read their face and their eye, you know their face reaction, their emotions, to see if they like it, and it's an immediate a review of your work. And then it's normally cash on hand, you know, immediately. And for me, that was really, really nerve-wracking, because I just thought, you know, I've spent all this time doing it, all this cost. What if they don't like it? What if they see the imperfections that I see? And it was really quite, I was quite anxious about it. Every time I had a cake delivery, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning perfecting things. And then the next day, when I had a look at the cake fully again for the second time, I would see all the imperfections, and I would just knock money off, even though the client hadn't seen it, the client hadn't said anything. And if there was one of the fondant people had like a little crack on the side of their face, which probably nobody else would have seen, I would just say, oh look, there's a crack. You know, I would basically point out the imperfections to the customer and say, I'll take off £10, blah blah blah. So anyway, I did that for a while. I'll show you some cakes. So my favorite one to date is this cake here. It's an orchid cake, and I made this for my aunt's, I can't even remember, like 60th birthday. And it was so, she loved it so much. She hasn't actually cut it. It's still in her house today. So basically it is all edible apart from the stalks. So the stalks is, I think it was floristry wire, or like a plastic stick of some sort, but it's just covered in fondant. The flowers are actually edible. Sugar paste is actually edible, but it doesn't taste very nice, and it's quite hard and chewy, but it is edible. And then the base of the cake was just a chocolate cake, and with fondant seals everything in, so really it's not going to smell. It's, I mean, if you were to cut it open, it probably will be moldy inside, but the fondant seals it all in, and so there's no smells or leaking or anything else. So she's got it on display in her house, which is really, really lovely. So that's that cake. And then I'll show you a couple of this is for, I think, Gabriel's birthday or christening. It's a Noah's Ark cake. So these are all fondant animals that I created by hand. Lots of lovely tutorials online. mixture of sugar paste and fondant. So sugar paste just hardens like rock, fondant hardens a little bit but not like rock. And also with sugar paste you can get really thin pieces without it flopping or breaking. And then the next one is a princess cake for Talia's. I'm not sure which birthday it was. So this was really quite challenging because even the turrets, so the top turret is an ice cream cone, but the long towers are actually cake, lots of little cylindrical bits of cake. Now, normally people would make that a faux cake, so it would be foam, and then they would just put not edible foam, and then they would just wrap fondant around it. But I wanted to do as much as possible in cake. So that was quite hard, and you can see it's tilting a little bit. And then the next one I quite liked was... oh yeah, the Me To You bear cake. That turned out really well because, as I say, I do find making precise things quite hard in terms of keeping things smooth and, you know, sharp edges in terms of the fondant. But because it was a cake, it was a bear, you basically just use, it's like, I don't know what nozzle it is, it's a nozzle with lots of little holes, so when you push it through, it's like little spaghetti strings come out. And it was a grey sugar paste, and then I just kind of piped it all the way around. So that was quite impressive for what it was. I think it looked, that was sort of the one that looked most professional in my opinion. And that was, I think, a joint birthday for Sienna and Gabriel, 4th and 2nd. And then the little balloons are fake, unfortunately. It's foam balloons with fondant on them. And then the other cakes, oh, I can't even remember. I'll just keep popping some up. I can't remember which ones the other ones are. But yeah, so I had a quite, you know, a couple of years of making cakes. The problem with cakes is that obviously there is a lot of cake left over. So when you bake a cake, normally you cut off the top because it's the domed browned part of the cake. You don't really want that, so you cut off the top. So there's a lot of tops of cakes left over. There's a lot of buttercream left over, and obviously I ended up eating it with the children, and it just wasn't a very healthy hobby to have as a prolonged hobby, I think. Also, in terms of doing the cakes for other people, it was very stressful. I wasn't getting much profit from it, and it was just taking so much of my time. And so I kind of decided to stop that. And back then as well, I was quite possessive of my cake making. Like the children would want to join in. So Tyler was probably about 5 or 6 when I was doing this, and she would want to join in. I was like, oh, I just dreaded the mess that she was going to make. So I'd literally just give her a bowl with some flour to stir with a whisk, and I'll just leave her to one side and she would do that. Eventually my husband was like, oh, maybe you should just, you know, get her involved because, you know, this could be a family business, what have you. And eventually I was able to let go of mess and just, you know, I just thought, you know what, it's going to be messy, we'll just let her enjoy herself and then we'll tidy up afterwards. Now the cake making crown has moved on to my daughters. So Talia and Sienna now do most of the baking in the house. We don't do celebration cakes anymore. So it's just normal baking for when we have guests over or when we have birthdays and things. So the girls are in charge of baking, which is really great. And I just focus on the savoury things. And that's it really. So that's just another sort of part of my life. And I think, what's the time? 22 minutes. It's quite early on. So I think because we have got a large family and because sort of quite early on, I was no longer an equal breadwinner in the family because I was still working but only doing intermittent sort of consultancy work for the family business. So basically from my law... from when I was practicing law in criminal defence, after I'd had Talia, I then moved over to private practice, and that's basically working for the family business. My husband has his own IT company, and so I was then I was sort of the legal person in the company, in charge of just looking over contracts, employment contracts, client contracts, that sort of thing. You know, updating, helping with the or the tax forms or that sort of thing. So I did that as a consultancy for a while, and the company paid for my licensing certificate, so that was quite nice. But then over the years, the work hasn't been flowing as such, so it just wasn't ideal for me to be there wasn't basically that much work, paid work for me to do. So it's just sort of consultancy at the moment, very little consultancy at the moment. And so by that point, my husband was and is the main breadwinner of the family, and with 8 children to feed, you know, things are, my husband does have a very good job and he gets paid well, but because the money is split between 10 people, it's not, it doesn't turn out to be that much in the end. I mean, obviously if we only had 2 children, then we'd be, you know, quite wealthy, I would say. And our choice was to have a large family, and as long as we can support them, have a roof over our heads, you know, have clothes, have food to wear, food to eat, then we're happy. You know, we're not lavish people. We don't have branded clothes, we don't have branded bags or watches, that sort of thing. So we live a sort of a normal, simple, quite comfortable life. I don't know why I'm saying this. Oh yes, so over the years I've just found, where I've had this hobby that's obviously eating money up as well, I always try to sort of turn things into a business to see if I can make some money on the side for a bit of pocket money for myself or the children, or just, you know, some extra things that aren't in the budget that, you know, you'd like to do. And so that's why that business was born. But it just wasn't sustainable at the time. And then I discovered sewing, and I've loved sewing. And as I've mentioned before, there are a lot of people that are asking me to sew garments for them, but after I've told them sort of how much it costs and how much time goes into it, it doesn't sound very cost effective to spend £100 on a dress when you can buy one for sort of half the price in the shops. But then obviously they do understand that bespoke and handmade is more expensive. But there are still quite a few of my friends that are willing to pay that, and I'm not going to do it now, but maybe in the future it's something that I would consider. Also, we've got some local friends that would like to have like a sewing class. So I wouldn't really be teaching them as such. I would sort of be, I mean, obviously I'm not a professional, but I guess I would be teaching them. But we would choose like a simple pattern, say Tilly and the Buttons, and we'd work through that. You know, maybe at my house, or, you know, a hall or something. And I think that would be quite a nice sort of get together for friends to just catch up and stuff, and learn how to sew. And I think passing on my love of sewing is really, I wouldn't say it's important to me, but it's a really nice thing if I can pass it on to friends, as I have done with my daughters. Sienna is doing patchworking and quilting at the moment. That finishes in March, but she has said that after that she doesn't want to do the quilting anymore, but she wants to start making her own clothes, which is great. So again, Tilly and the Buttons patterns for her would be amazing. So that would be quite nice. The only problem is I only have one sewing machine. I used to have 2, but I gave the other one away to my sister. I used to have 3 actually. So my very first one, which was given to me by Daniel's late grandmother, that one, you know, when you get used to sewing, you just want like a machine that doesn't have any problems, that feels and sounds good. You know, when the machine is going, you just want that nice sound, and that machine wasn't giving me a nice sound. And I managed to convince my husband to get me an upgrade, which was the Pfaff that I do now have. And then in the meantime, my mother-in-law had her Singer, like a basic manual Singer, which I had as well, and I wasn't really using it as much, and so I gave that to my sister-in-law. So I only have one machine now. But my husband did say if Sienna learns to sew her own clothes, and she, you know, she's quite into it, she becomes quite into it, then she will get her own machine. So that's quite nice for her. And that's it really. That's all I have to talk about today. Hopefully tomorrow I will be able to show you Ava's little dress, and then maybe some progress on Anya's progress on Sienna's Bakerloo dress as well. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.